I never planned to slap anyone that night, I just wanted a quiet dinner with my husband, but when his mistress walked up to our table and slapped me in front of everyone, something inside me finally broke. I slapped her back, and that one slap destroyed everything he built. If you think you know how this story ends, wait, because even I didn't see the real twist coming. Follow me now because this story is about to get very interesting. My name doesn't matter right now. What matters is what happened to me and what I did about it. For 8 years I was married to a man everyone admired. He built his business from nothing, a small trading company that grew into something big enough that people whispered his name with respect in every meeting room. We had a beautiful house, 2 cars, a driver, a cook. From the outside, my life looked like a dream. But dreams have cracks, you just don't notice them until the light hits at the wrong angle. In the beginning, he called me 5 times a day. He used to bring flowers for no reason. He used to say, "You are my luck. Since I married you, everything I touch turns into gold." I believed him. I built my entire identity around being his wife, his support, his home. Slowly over the years, the calls became less. The flowers stopped. The late nights became normal. I told myself it was just business. Successful men are busy men, right? That's what I kept repeating to myself like a prayer that could protect my marriage from the truth. But there's a moment every woman knows, even if she doesn't want to admit it. A moment when your gut tells you something is wrong, long before your mind is ready to accept it. Mine came on an ordinary Tuesday evening. He came home late as usual, but that night there was a smell on his shirt, a perfume I didn't own. I stood in our bedroom holding that shirt, and for the first time in 8 years, I felt something I had never felt before. Fear. Not fear of losing him. Fear of losing myself if I chose to stay silent. I didn't say anything that night. I folded the shirt and put it away, and I told myself I was imagining things. But once you start noticing, you can't stop. His phone, which used to sit openly on the dining table, started disappearing into his pocket the moment I walked into the room. He started taking calls on the balcony, speaking in a low voice. Business trips became more frequent. Sometimes he would leave for 2-3 days, and when he came back, he seemed distracted, like his mind was somewhere else with someone else. One evening, his younger sister came to visit. We were close, or at least I thought we were. Over tea, she said something strange. "Bai seems very happy these days," she said, smiling in a way that didn't feel innocent. "Business must be going really well." There was something in her tone, something she knew and I didn't. I asked her directly, "Is there something you're not telling me?" She laughed it off and changed the subject, but her eyes didn't meet mine when she answered. That's when I understood even the people around me were keeping a secret, and I was the only one who didn't know it yet. That night I confronted him for the first time, carefully, gently, without accusation. "You seem distant lately," I said. "Is everything okay between us?" He looked at me like I had asked something ridiculous. "Everything is fine, business is stressful, that's all. Why are you overthinking?" He said it so calmly, so convincingly that for a moment I doubted myself. Maybe I was overthinking. Maybe 8 years of marriage had made me paranoid. But a woman's instinct is rarely wrong, it's just often ignored. I decided not to accuse him again. Instead, I decided to watch, quietly, patiently, because sometimes the strongest move is not to fight, it's to wait until you have enough proof that no lie can survive. 3 weeks passed like this, watching, waiting, saying nothing. Then one morning, he surprised me. "Get ready tonight," he said, smiling like the old days. "We're going out for dinner, a big deal just closed, I want to celebrate with you." For a moment, all my suspicion melted away. Maybe I was wrong about everything. Maybe this was his way of coming back to me, of choosing our marriage again. I got ready with more care than I had in months. I wore my favorite outfit, something soft and elegant in a warm rose color, simple gold jewelry, nothing too loud. I wanted this night to feel like the beginning of something new. The restaurant he chose was one of the finest in the city, the kind of place with soft lighting and quiet piano music, where every table felt like its own private world. When we arrived, several of his business partners were already there, along with their wives. Everyone was laughing, celebrating, raising toasts. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I belonged somewhere again. But halfway through the dinner, I noticed her. A woman sitting 2 tables away, alone, dressed elegantly, sipping wine slowly. She wasn't eating. She wasn't on her phone. She was watching our table, watching him. At first, I thought maybe she was just people watching, the way strangers sometimes do in restaurants. but every time I looked over, her eyes were already on him or on me, studying us like she was memorizing something. I nudged my husband gently. Do you know that woman? He glanced over quickly, then looked away just as fast. Too fast. No idea, he said, probably waiting for someone. But his hand, which had been resting on the table, was now gripping his glass a little too tightly. His voice had a slight tremble he tried to hide behind a sip of wine. I said nothing, I just watched, and somewhere deep inside, that old fear from the bedroom, holding that perfumed shirt, came back stronger than ever. The dinner continued, toasts were made, laughter filled the air, and then, just as the dessert arrived, she stood up. She walked toward our table with a confidence that silenced conversations around her, every step deliberate, every eye in the restaurant slowly turning toward her. She stopped directly in front of me. "So this is the wife," she said, loud enough for the entire restaurant to hear, "the one who thinks she still has a husband." My heart stopped, the table went silent. My husband's face turned pale, his mouth opening but no words coming out. "I have been with him for over a year," she continued, her voice dripping with cruelty and confidence. "He was going to leave you, he promised me, but it seems he's still playing games, bringing you to celebrate deals that I helped him close." The entire restaurant was staring now, waiters frozen mid-step, his business partners looking down at their plates, unable to meet anyone's eyes. And then, without warning, she raised her hand and slapped me. The sound cracked through the silence like a gunshot. For a second I couldn't feel anything. My cheek burned, but my mind was somewhere else entirely, replaying 8 years of my life in an instant. The flowers, the late nights, the perfume, the whispered secret his sister almost told me, every piece falling into place at once. I looked at my husband. He was frozen, staring at his own plate, saying nothing, not defending me, not stopping her, just sitting there like a coward hiding behind his own silence. That silence hurt more than the slap ever could. Something changed in me in that moment, not anger exactly, something colder, something stronger. I stood up slowly, my hands weren't shaking anymore. I looked her directly in the eyes, and without raising my voice, without any drama, I slapped her back. Harder, cleaner, calmer. The sound was even louder the second time, or maybe it just felt that way because the entire restaurant was holding its breath. She stumbled back, shocked. She had expected tears. She had expected me to cry, to run, to fall apart in front of everyone. Instead, I stood taller than I had in years. I turned to my husband. 8 years, I said, my voice steady even though my heart was breaking. 8 years I gave you everything, and you couldn't even find the courage to open your mouth while another woman slapped your wife in front of your business partners. I turned to the table of guests, to the men whose respect he valued more than anything. "Ask him," I said, "how many deals were closed after dinners like this one. Ask him whose money really built this empire he shows off. Ask him what he's been hiding from all of you, the same way he's been hiding it from me." Nobody said a word, but I could see it in their faces. Questions were forming, doubts were planting themselves. And doubt, once planted in a room full of investors and partners, grows faster than anyone can control. I picked up my bag and without looking back, I walked out of that restaurant with my head high, leaving behind a broken table, a stunned mistress, and a husband who had just lost more than he realized. News like that doesn't stay quiet, not in a city where everyone knows everyone, where business and gossip move through the same circles. By the next morning, the story had already spread, not exactly the way it happened, but close enough. People love a scandal, and a public slap between a wife and a mistress at an elite restaurant was too good a story not to share. His phone started ringing constantly, partners asking questions, investors asking about the woman at the dinner. His sister called me, this time with panic in her voice instead of secrets. "I didn't know it would go this far," she said. "I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner." I didn't answer her apology. Some apologies come too late to matter. Instead of breaking down at home, waiting for him to explain himself, I did something he never expected. I stayed calm, I stayed quiet, and I started gathering information. I remembered small details over the years, documents he asked me to sign without explanation, bank statements he kept hidden, a second phone I once found in his car and never questioned. That night, while he was out trying to control the damage with his business partners, I went through everything I could find. What I discovered shocked even me. The business wasn't entirely his. Years ago, when we were struggling financially, it was my father who had quietly invested a large sum to help him start the company. Over time, that investment had been buried under new paperwork, new partnerships, new names, until officially on paper, I had no claim to anything. But I still had the original documents. Old, yellowed, forgotten in a box in our storage room, documents he probably assumed I had thrown away years ago. I also found something else. Messages between him and the woman from the restaurant, going back further than a year. And buried in those messages was something even more damaging, details about a second company he had secretly registered, using funds diverted from deals his current investors believed were fully accounted for. He hadn't just been unfaithful to me, he had been unfaithful to everyone who trusted him. I contacted a lawyer the very next day, quietly, calmly, without telling him anything. Within 2 weeks, everything he built began to unravel. Investors who had heard whispers of financial irregularities started pulling out, unwilling to risk their reputations. Partners who once toasted to his success now distanced themselves, afraid of being connected to a growing scandal. And the mistress, the woman who had slapped me with such confidence, so sure of her power over him, she was abandoned the fastest. Once his money started disappearing, so did her interest. I heard later that she had already moved on to someone else, someone with less baggage and more available cash. He lost his investors, he lost his partners, he lost the empire he had built his entire identity around. And in the end, he lost the one person who had actually stood by him through everything, even when I shouldn't have. People often ask me if I regret that slap, if I regret making a scene in front of everyone that night. I don't. Because that slap wasn't just about her cruelty, it was about 8 years of silence finally breaking, 8 years of ignoring my own instincts to protect a marriage that had already died long before that dinner. I walked away from that marriage with something I hadn't had in years, my dignity. Using the original investment documents, my lawyer helped me reclaim a portion of what rightfully belonged to my family. It wasn't about revenge or greed. It was about taking back what was mine, what I had earned through years of sacrifice, patience, and silent support that was never truly valued. With that, I started something of my own. Small at first, just an idea, a little business rooted in something I had always loved but never had the courage to pursue while I was busy being someone's wife. It grew slowly, honestly, without secrets, without hidden phones, without perfume that didn't belong to me. Today, when I look back at that night at the restaurant, I don't see it as the moment my marriage ended. I see it as the moment I finally began. One slap didn't just defend me that night, it freed me. It freed me from years of pretending everything was fine. It freed me from silence I mistook for peace. And most importantly, it showed me a strength I didn't know I had until the moment I needed it most. If you were in my place that night, would you have done the same thing? Would you have stayed silent, or would you have slapped back? Tell me honestly in the comments below. And if this story moved you, follow for more real stories like this one, because trust me, the next one might hit even closer to home.